once again, the capitalist class announces their support for freedom of competition by deliberately hindering competition. House Republicans have unveiled a plan for boosting broadband connectivity in the United States and promoting competition, which is one of the key planks of prohibiting states and cities from building their own networks. In other words, to foster competition, they want to ban states from being able to build their own broadband networks that would compete with privately owned ones, because the solution to not having enough competition is to make even less competition. Now, we know very much what this is about. By eliminating a state provider, you are then forced to go to the free market, where their friends, the people they actually work for, meaning the Republican Party and all other bourgeois politicians for that matter, would be able to essentially take your money by not letting you have a public option. And not having a public option seems to be something that is very popular in the United States. They call it the Boosting Broadband Connectivity Agenda, which was announced by Republicans Kathy Morris Rogers, a Republican from Washington, and Bob Latta, a Republican from Ohio. Now, the top Republicans in House Commerce Committee and Subcommittee for Communications and Technology, these two are particularly representing. Now, Republicans are calling this the Connect Act. Communities over-regulating networks need economic competition today. The bill would promote competition by limiting the ability of government-run broadband networks to the country and encouraging private investment. So, essentially, encourage private investment by eliminating competition. Now, there's a lot more that's very difficult with this situation. Now, the attorney Jim Baller, who represents the local governments and maintains a list of states that restrict municipal broadbands and other communications incentives. In the face of compelling pandemic-driven evidence that affordable broadband internet access is essential to modern life, the tens of millions of Americans are being left behind that an emergency requiring immediate action exists. 5 enlightened Arkansas Republicans recently persuaded their overwhelmingly Republican legislature to vote unanimously to give local governments significantly new authority to provide or support provision of broadband internet access. Now, taking exactly the opposite approach in the U.S. Congress, Republicans on the House Energy and Commerce Committee have just introduced a bill that would all but extinguish public broadband initiatives and public broadband partnerships nationwide. That's utterly absurd. Now, here's the problem. Like pretty much all infrastructure in the United States and every other country in the world, it's built by the state because it is not actually profitable for private companies to do. The money just isn't there. That's why they don't actually do it, and states do it. Essentially, what this would say is that if any municipality would be allowed to have their own broadband service so long as there wasn't any competition. So a capitalist could move their broadband business into what is in a place where the state is the only provider, and then immediately the state, or the municipality in this case, would immediately have to stop providing that service and allow the private company to take all of the customers and all of the infrastructure. So you see what a pretty good deal this is for private business. They get to take all of the benefits of a state-created infrastructure and then just leech off of it like the parasites that they are. This extends to a lot of things, like the interstate highway system, the electrical grid, and internet is no different. A lot of communities don't have it because the cost of the infrastructure is significantly outweighs the profits that the companies would make if they would get in profits for providing that service, which is why the state has to step in and do these things to begin with, which is why state investment is absolutely necessary. So you see exactly what the Republican Party is doing here. They're going to essentially steal state assets and give it to private companies, because you're allowed to have a municipal service so long as there's no competition. So all the capitalist does is just wait for the state to build the infrastructure, and then they can just move in and take it all over, and there's nothing that the state provider can do about it. Now, this hasn't exactly passed, but it is something that Republicans in the House are trying to do right now. The idea about creating competition is by deliberately eliminating competition. So you see the complete and total hypocrisy of capitalism in this case, where they need the state to build it up, and then now the taxpayer can pay for building up the infrastructure for services they need, and then the capitalist can come in and just take it for free. And essentially, that's exactly what this bill would do. And it shows the, as I said, parasitical nature of the capitalist, who says, oh, the free market can do everything, don't worry, and competition and lack of regulation, except when, it literally doesn't do that. It actually does the opposite. But again, pointing out the hypocrisy of capitalism, or to many people would be a contradiction of capitalism. The free market only works so long as the state intervenes in order to make it work. So this is something that you definitely need to be paying attention to if you use a municipal broadband network, because they could be voting to essentially take that away from you and place internet service into the hands of private companies, which, of course, if that happens, absolutely nothing bad could possibly come from that, right?
Thank you for watching. If you like this program, then please head over to my Patreon page and set up a monthly donation. It's your donations that keep this program running. Also, if you would like, please rate, comment, subscribe, and share in various social media.